Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Syracuse Basketball Postgame. It's presented by Krause Health. We're live here on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page, live on Twitter and on YouTube, or perhaps you're watching somewhere in the future because this here show, which is something you want to be a part of live after every Syracuse basketball game. But just in case you can't make it here afterwards, the YouTube, social media, we put the YouTube clip in my recap at syracuse.com. You can't miss the show somewhere down the road if you miss it live. But if you're here live, you can participate in the conversation. As Lucas says here, best freshman class ever. Boeheim right about that. And Lucas with a great point to start us off here tonight as Syracuse beats Notre Dame 78-73. Syracuse down by 12 points. At one point of this game, Notre Dame just could not miss. We'll go over the numbers here, but this was an Irish team that for most of this game was just hitting everything it shot in this game, particularly from three-point range. But then Syracuse goes into the press. They shake things up a little bit. Notre Dame goes through about 4 or 5 possessions there where they don't score, and Syracuse just keeps getting rebounds, going up the floor, and scoring. Jesse Edwards with his 8th double-double of the year. And the most impressive thing about that whole comeback was you had 4 freshmen on the floor for Syracuse against a very experienced Notre Dame team, a team that's got a bunch of seniors and grad students out there. Judah Mintz was great. Malik Brown had another terrific game. He just keeps getting better and better and better. And this is a Syracuse team that's won 9 of its last 11 games. It's an impressive win. It just winning a game, coming back, coming together as a team doesn't mean much for Syracuse's NCAA tournament resume, unfortunately, as Notre Dame had a pretty low net ranking, but it sets up a pretty big game Monday night. Syracuse playing one of the better teams in the ACC in Miami. So, boy, the comments are coming fast and furious. Let's see what you got. Ben says, cardiac cues, this group of freshmen is something special. But JB's stubbornness to stick with that zone against such a great three-point shooting team was frustrating. Jim likes what he saw from Brown, who steps up again. There's Michael saying, how about those freshmen? Brian saying, Brent, I think it's fair to say Syracuse basketball grew up tonight against a very experienced team. Nonetheless, Tawan just ringing the bell. Chris Bell had a terrific game as well. Every freshman that played had a spectacular game for Syracuse out there. Christopher says, we want Duke. No, really. What's that, a quad 3 game? Yeah, Duke lost to Clemson today. Clemson off to a 7-0 start in ACC play. Doug noting Brown and Bell, amazing. Taylor, there's a name we got to mention. We'll go through all the stats here shortly. The press always gives this team energy. Matt likes the comeback from this team. They did change the defense a little too late, but it wasn't too little too late in this case. Lori checking in from Sacramento saying great coaching to change the pace and control the second half. Chuck says Brown came up huge again. He deserves the time and the start from here on out. Typically it doesn't matter who starts. It matters who plays the game, who's in there. Benny Williams actually looked pretty good earlier in this game, but Malik Brown just can't be stopped right now. He's always around the basket, clutch, grabbing rebounds, throwing down jams, had some great defensive plays in this game. I mean, Malik Brown, we are watching his breakout. Lane notes how clutch Judah was, the free throws down the stretch. Jesse Edwards with some key free throws down the stretch. Judah Mintz certainly does not look like a freshman out there the way that he is playing this game. Scott says, tell Starling have a safe trip back to South Bend with 9-9. I like J.J. Starling. I think he made some great plays out there, but the Baldwinsville native comes in and was hot and heavy on Syracuse's radar once upon a time, but the Orange got the best of him in this case. There's Iris who says, great game. Brown had another good game today. Jesse, a better game. Chris Bell contributed tonight. Chris Bell had some sweet shots out there, matching Notre Dame's threes, and really kept Syracuse in this game. And it looked like Notre Dame was just going to pull away from this thing. A couple more from you, then we'll jump into the stats a little bit here. Michael noting weathering all those threes shows character. Mintz is looking more and more like a one and done. Hope not. I don't think he's ready, but needs another year to work on that jumper. He's certainly playing like one at this point. And 2 noted freshmen out there in Judah Mintz and J.J. Starling, as we noted. All right, you guys are, boy, you're just coming fast and furious. I can barely keep up with you here. You guys keep going at it, and let's go over some stats from this one because, boy, it just felt like Notre Dame was going to shoot Syracuse out of the building. Remember, earlier this year, Syracuse lost a game to Colgate where the Raiders hit 19 3-pointers. Notre Dame ends up with 15 threes in this game. They shoot 45% overall, 27 of 59, 40% from three-point range. Syracuse actually topped that percentage-wise. They were 8 of 19 from three-point range. Syracuse shot 52% overall, but Syracuse was really impressive in the second half where they shot 60%, 61% actually, 14 of 23, 11 of 15 at the free throw line, 3 of 6 from three-point range. Syracuse and Notre Dame both had 21 assists in this game. The Orange out-rebounded the Irish. That's 3 games in a row that Syracuse has out-rebounded a team. In this case, it was 34-29. And I want to look at the second half here when Syracuse swung it their way. They won the second half 42-33. We mentioned how well they shot. Notre Dame goes from, Notre Dame shot 53% in the first half. They shot 39% in the second half. Shows you, the monkey wrench that Syracuse kind of threw into the spokes of that hot shooting Notre Dame team when they went to the press, mixed things up a little bit. In that second half, Syracuse out-rebounded Notre Dame in the second half, 18-15. They shot 50% from three-point range. I mean, that second half, with 4 freshmen on the floor for most of it, shows you, this team grew up a little bit tonight. Points in the paint, Syracuse outscored Notre Dame 36-20 in the second half. Overall, I know that was overall, 36-20 points in the paint. Look, Notre Dame, that's a crushing loss for them. They're 9-9. That's a team that's got a lot of experience, a lot of seniors that came back because they wanted to go to the NCAA tournament, and barring, winning the ACC tournament at this point, that doesn't look like it's going to happen. And like we said, Syracuse's resume doesn't get any help from this win, but they grew up as a team, right? They got all those intangibles, those freshmen in a tight spot. Now, they played a tight game against Notre Dame in South Bend the first time around. Remember, Judah Mintz had the winning score in that one, but it was the Justin Taylors of the world, the Chris Bells of the world, the Malik Browns of the world, who you can't practice that. You cannot teach that. The experience they picked up, being smart, playing great defense, hitting shots, grabbing rebounds off the Notre Dame misses. Like, these are things you just cannot teach, and that those freshmen really learned out there tonight. So let's get right back at it here and see what you guys and gals are saying. As Skylar notes, the Orange swept the Irish this year. Already that in the books here on January the 14th. With Miami coming on Monday, which will be a tough one, of course, for Syracuse. Matt saying once Judah can reliably shoot the 3, he's going to be unstoppable. What's interesting about that, Matt, is Notre Dame gave him the 3-point shot tonight, and he's just not there yet as a shooter. He'll get there as a shooter, but man, can that kid attack the basket. What did Judah have? I forgot to note this for you guys, the individual stats. Let me go back to that. Chris Bell led Syracuse with 17 points. He's 5 of 8 from three-point range. We mentioned Jesse Edwards' 8th double-double, 13 points and 15 rebounds. Malik Brown, 15 points and 6 rebounds. Judah Mintz with 14 points, 8 assists, just 1 turnover on the night. That terrific assist-to-turnover ratio he's had. Joe Girard, just 7 points, made a couple of clutch defensive plays. Yeah, I said it, defensive plays down the stretch. He hit his head on the court at one point. He had a cut above his eye. Had to go to the bench for a while. They got it under control. He comes back in, but as we noted, for a bulk of that second half, you had 4 freshmen carrying the way for this team. Justin Taylor with 5 points and 2 rebounds. Doesn't look that impressive, but he had a huge 3-pointer for this team, gave this team some quality minutes in the second half when they really needed it. So I wanted to jump back and give you those numbers for the Orange here. All right, Dan saying Brown playing more. We can win the rebound battle. What can Brown do for you? He can do everything at this point, as Dale says, an upcoming stud. Michael says Mintz drives, puts us in the bonus, and Mintz and Jesse hit huge free throws down the stretch. And why, kids? Because hashtag free throws matter. And there were a couple possessions before that where they went 1 of 2 at the free throw line. And I'm thinking, don't let this sink your battleship here that you're missing at the free throw line. But it was the clutch situations down the stretch with Cole Hauser watching from courtside, otherwise known as Rip from Yellowstone. I prefer to think of him from Dazed and Confused and Good Will Hunting myself. I do watch Yellowstone, big fan. But, Cole's done a lot of great work out there. He was in the Adam Weitzman, Spike Lee courtside seats. Jim Boeheim going over to both Adam and Cole with about 1.8 seconds to go. Syracuse just had to inbound the ball, get fouled, hit the 2 free throws, and get out of there. But he went up to those guys and was saying something right at the end of the game. So hopefully we'll find out what that is at some point. Doug noting that Syracuse got in the bonus early. That really helped them down the stretch. Josh saying, told y'all, Malik was a problem. Here's Kevin. You think our SU groups are bad? I can't imagine what they're saying in the Notre Dame groups at this point. They're worried about football, Kevin. They probably gave up on hoops already. First time winning a game when Joe was off. That's important. Look, Joe Girard is going to battle. He's your main, and this is a team that shot over 40% from 3-point range, and Joe wasn't even really involved in that department. Joe finishes 1 of 5 from 3-point range, 7 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists. We noted he was out for a good part of the game. He played 30 minutes because of the cut he suffered above his eye. But if you're going to shoot 40% as a team from 3-point range and he's not involved in that, that's huge. Jesse needs help. Joe needs help. Malik Brown is providing that help for Jesse. Tonight, it was Chris Bell and Justin Taylor, for that matter, who hit a 3. But Chris Bell was huge from beyond the arc. And, you know, it's one of those games. He had 3 rebounds. But if you're going to score 17 points and go 5 of 8 from 3-point range, who cares what Chris Bell did on the rebounding front? Because Jesse was rebounding, Malik Brown was rebounding. So these freshmen have come in and given Joe and Jesse the help that they need, and the confidence you gain from a win like this is big. As Christian notes, this is a 5-2 team in the ACC. Monday's a huge, huge game for Syracuse. If they can prove they can beat a top team in the ACC, that's a quad 1 opportunity for the Orange. They go on the road in a huge matchup against Miami. And then remember, you got Virginia again at the end of the month. You got Virginia Tech again coming up here. There's some big opportunities for the Orange here, especially with the way they are playing at this point. All right. Greg says, how does this team make the tournament? Greg, you just got to keep winning. I mean, it's as simple as that, but you in particular have got to beat the quad 1 and quad 2 teams on your schedule. Miami is a huge statement game. Syracuse does not have a quality win on its resume beyond Virginia Tech, which is a quad 2 game. They didn't pick up any non-conference wins of note. They still have time and opportunities to kind of shove some quad 1 games and quad 2 wins on their resume, and you can't slip on a banana peel. Like, this would have been a game, you know, as much as heart and grit and everything they showed in terms of the kind of stone cold look the NCAA tournament resume and the committee looks at, this would have hurt Syracuse badly because Notre Dame's net ranking, I think it was like 174 coming into this game at this point. Brian, I love this comparison because Jerry McNamara has said this. Others have said this. There is a lot of Johnny Flynn and Judah Mintz. You know, Johnny and Judah, not exactly, you know, body types don't match up, but the tenacity, attacking the rim, no fear, leadership. I mean, everything else about those two is a fair and apt comparison. I really enjoy watching Judah play. He's just got so many intangibles. His game is coming around. His confidence is there. He made some great passes tonight. We mentioned the 8 assists, even just a little dish-off pass to Justin Taylor, just the smoothness of it. You know, there was one play where Judah, this was in the first half, drove to the rim. He's kind of leaning off of the right side, fights through the defense, kisses one off the glass. Like, this kid's just got instincts, and it's fun to watch. And he is a leader growing before our very eyes as a freshman, as you have to do in the sport now. And there's so much talk about the transfer portal. Syracuse went the traditional means this year. And look, tonight, the freshmen shined. They've had their moments where they haven't, for sure, but they all shined in this one tonight against one of the most experienced teams in the country. I mean, you just can't write that script any better. As Jamie notes here, got to guard the 3. I know the zone is designed to keep them outside, but there were several times where Notre Dame passed to the top corner for easy open 3s. You got to read that and put a body on them. I think that's the one bugaboo from tonight, Jamie. Jim did not go to the press, I think, soon enough. It worked. They went to the press. They took advantage of some Notre Dame misses. They won the game. All that noted, you got to go to the press or man-to-man earlier than that. Notre Dame was just burning you. Were there a few that Notre Dame was just playing catch and shoot, and you're like, if you're going to shoot that thing from Rochester, go ahead and take it. I'll give you a few, but I don't know why they were so slow to come out of that and why they're typically so slow to come out of that. Especially when that team's that hot, get out of the zone. Get out of the zone and get on those guys. It worked tonight, but man, It was like in a football term, a bend but don't break type of situation, and that thing almost broke tonight. Good thing Syracuse answered on the other end. That's the key. If you're going to give up a lot of threes, you got to answer on the other end, not only offensively but with threes. And Syracuse did that tonight. Not to Notre Dame's level of 14, but certainly hit enough. And the timing of their threes was absolutely huge. Tim says, great to see the press run earlier in the second half. Really got Notre Dame out of their rhythm. Here we are saying they didn't go to it soon enough. Tim disagrees and says they went to it when they needed to at this point. Let's see here. Just catching up with you guys. Jermaine just says, where do we go from here? Jermaine, look, this team gained a lot of confidence tonight. They know how to play in these tight situations. There's going to be more of them. There's a long way. There's 2 months to go. Think about this. There is 2 months. The ACC tournament is about 2 months from now, right? Selection Sunday, I'm not sure when it is this year, is about 2 months from now. I mean, that's a lot of basketball. It's a lot of opportunities for Syracuse, but the margin for error is still slim. This is a great win. This was a great showing. It's an entertaining game tonight, but that margin for error is slim. You can't lose to bottom rung teams in the ACC and keep building up your resume. You can't lose too many, right? That's the problem in Syracuse's case. I happen to like the fact that the selection committee has put it on these teams to play somebody for 4 months out of the year, not just 2 months out of the year. Conference play should be weighted heavily, but who you play is important, and Syracuse has done a good job challenging itself and putting notable teams on its non-conference resume. The problem is when you lose to Colgate and you lose to Bryant and you lose to teams that you shouldn't be losing to. If you're Syracuse, that hurts you when you're losing those games in November. You forget about losing to, Illinois and some of the higher ranked net rankings that you had at that point of the season. And when you lose in some of these tournaments, right? You can't lose to Colgate and Bryant and teams like that earlier in the year because it just puts you so far behind. But they've done all they can to come out of that, winning 9 of their last 11, 5-2 in ACC play. Now it's all about building up those quad one wins, which, they've got a huge opportunity to do on Monday night. RJ says, fun night, biggest crowd so far, plus a guy wins $10K on the half-court shot. Everybody was making their shots tonight. So a guy won $10,000, as RJ notes, at the half-court shot. Another guy won like $2,500 in one of those shooting promotions. The guy that hit the free throw to win the chair, one of the old school great promotions at the Dome. You just couldn't miss if you were at the Dome tonight, right? David says everybody on the court in a Cuse jersey contributed to this one. Katie thinks that Syracuse wins Monday. They're in the conversation in the tournament. They certainly will be more in that conversation than they are now, Katie, at this point. Denise already wants to know SU versus Duke. We'll get there. Duke certainly doesn't look like the force they were a year ago. They lost to Clemson tonight. They're going to fall out of the top 25 when the new poll comes out on Monday. Syracuse Duke's had their number in recent years, Denise, but we'll see where the Orange are at when that matchup comes a few weeks down the road here. Matt says, now it's time to see them compete against a good team. Haven't really shown much against good teams. They showed a little fight in the second half at Virginia on the road, but they were too far behind. So what they have to avoid is another slow start. If Miami starts hitting from 3, get up on them quicker, right? Jim Larinaga, great coach, built a great program there. I really like what I see from Miami this year. Remember, they went deep in the tournament last year when the ACC had a disaster of a regular season. Then Duke and North Carolina get to the Final Four. Miami makes a deep run. There were more ACC teams in the Sweet 16 and the vaunted Big Ten, which had a huge regular season but choked on its own vomit in the NCAA tournament last year. So, look, Miami's tough. They're a tough team, and Syracuse is going to have to take all the best from the last 2 games and apply it Monday night. And now you got to do it on the road. Now you got to do it in a tougher situation and a quick turnaround, right? But sometimes when you're feeling it and you're playing confident, who needs practice? Just get back out there on the court as soon as you can, and the Orange will be doing that on Monday night. Skylar thinks North Carolina they can definitely compete against at this point. Yeah, Carolina. The ACC right now, Clemson's on top, Miami's on top. You know what? While we're yapping about it here, let me pull up the ACC standings just to kind of see where things are at right now, because it's been really close thus far. but eventually some are going to pull away from the pack, and the men will separate from the boys in this case. So when you look at the ACC at this point, Clemson 7-0, Pitt is 5-2. Remember, Syracuse just lost by 2 to Pitt at the Dome a few weeks back. Miami is 5-2. Virginia is 5-2. Syracuse is 5-2. I mean, technically, Syracuse is tied for second place in the league right now. A lot of teams in that logjam, though. Wake Forest is 4-2. NC State 4-3. Duke's 4-3 in the league, right? So you've got right now about 9 teams at the top of the league, and then there's a huge drop-off. Florida State's got a losing record. Boston College is a losing record. Virginia Tech's 1-5 in the league, but 11-6 overall. Notre Dame now at 5-5 1-6 in the league, 9-9 overall, 500 overall. Georgia Tech, who Syracuse sees pretty soon here, 8-9 on the year. And then there's Louisville having their disaster of a season at 2-16. So not only is Miami a big game upcoming here, let's just kind of peek ahead over the valley a little bit and see what Syracuse has here and how it sets up. So you got Miami at Miami Monday night, as big as it can get for Syracuse there. Then they go to Georgia Tech. So you got 2 on the road. We mentioned how bad Georgia Tech's playing. North Carolina to follow, then the rematches with Virginia Tech in Virginia. That'll end the month. Syracuse will start off February at BC and at Florida State, 2 bad teams. NC State in there. And now we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but Duke doesn't come till February 18th. The best team in the league, Clemson, doesn't come until February 22nd. I think Syracuse can have a lot of trouble with Clemson, to be honest with you. You get Pitt again on the 25th, Georgia Tech at home, and Wake Forest. So we talked about those quad 1 opportunities. Monday is huge. Hold your own against Georgia Tech. I think North Carolina still might be a quad 1 game when they come to the Dome on the 24th. Get that game. See what you can do against Virginia Tech and Virginia, which will both be quad 1 and quad 2 games. And all of a sudden, you could have yourself a heck of a resume. But it's just interesting that Syracuse has a great ACC record, and if they keep maintaining here, they'll have a great league record. But that doesn't matter as much as it used to, that you just made your way through a strong lead. Who'd you beat? Where are the quad 1 and quad 2 wins? And that's what Syracuse is making up for at this point. But they're starting to play like a team that can challenge those type of teams if they keep up what they've been doing. Not just tonight, but really in the past few games. We mentioned how they kind of stormed back in the Virginia game, played really well against Virginia Tech, and tonight came out of a 12-point hole, weathered that storm, played the press. Freshmen are contributing. Like, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of light bulbs starting to come on with this team at this point. Brian saying, so excited, almost forgot it to flip to the NFL. Speaking of which, go Bills. Miami doesn't have a chance in Orchard Park tomorrow with everything that's been going on with the Buffalo Bills, and I will share that sentiment with you. Anthony noting NC State beat Miami. If Syracuse can duplicate and squeak out a win at home with Virginia, they could get to the dance. Beating Duke at home would help, and not losing to a team at the bottom of the ACC. Very well said there, Anthony. That is pretty much the plan at this point. Tim says lots of momentum gained with 4 freshmen and HEMA in the middle. Pretty exciting to watch at this point. Blake says you live by the 3. Notre Dame died by the 3 tonight. Rick likes the ball movement. HEMA plus minus winner again. Brown, just all kinds of emojis for how he's playing at this point. Scholar thinks this is an underrated Syracuse team at this point. We've seen that before. These Syracuse teams that just come way off the radar and do some damage. There's Robbie who says, obviously, we don't want to lose to the likes of Bryan and Colgate, but in terms of the quad system, are those bad losses? Well, why don't we find out right now, Robbie? I'm going to pull up the net rankings for everybody. Give me a second here. Because remember, the net rankings do fluctuate based on how things are going. So Colgate right now, it's a bad loss one way or the other. I can tell you that without even looking it up. But Colgate, let's see here. Where's Colgate? I'm scrolling pretty far down the list, so that's going to be a bad loss for Syracuse. Colgate. 121, so that's a bad loss for sure. Bryant, See where Brian is on the list. Team that Syracuse lost to earlier this year. 168. Yeah, so those are both going to qualify as pretty bad losses for the Orange at this point. Mike with a great point here. It would be nice if the women make it a weekend sweep of Notre Dame. Notre Dame's really good on the women's side, but Felicia Leggett-Jack's team has won 3 straight games, so they'll give them a challenge, I'm sure. Bay notes Syracuse is a tough schedule down the road, need to win 6, 2 in the tournament, and then pray. Because we got to pray just to make it today. Scott says, I was at the game. Should have never been that close. Why didn't we press earlier? Oh, come on, Scott. Nobody likes the fuddy-duddy in the room after a nice win like that. You're not wrong, though. They should have definitely put the press on earlier, but all things certainly worked. I was using Control-F, Brian, and I'm still slow at this point. A couple more from you guys here before we wrap it up for the evening. Lucas says, to quote Major League, there's only one thing left to do, right? Go win the whole bleeping thing. That's right. Alan makes a good point. NCAA takes hot teams at the end of the year, so Syracuse can keep this up. As much as they say they look at the whole resume, they do get affected by teams that are playing their best February into March, into Selection Sunday. Syracuse, I don't think we've seen them play. They certainly played one of their best games tonight after playing their best overall game against Virginia Tech. So they can bottle that up, though. They know what that's like. They can tap into that and know what it's like to play that way, especially the freshmen and those things you can't teach at practice. That's what these games do for you. That's what this win will do for Syracuse tonight. It was noted Miami lost to NC State. Let me, before we exit here, let's go get a little recap of that one here. I did not get a chance to watch that game today. Certainly want to take a look at it, though, before Syracuse plays Monday night. Where are we here? So Miami, who they're 16th after the loss to NC State. They split this week. They'll probably still be in the poll when it comes out on Monday. That was a close game that they lost to NC State today, 83-81. NC State won that game. Ernest Ross had a pretty clutch putback for NC State at the end of that one. NC State's 14-4. They're 4-3. Got a few ACC losses. So that was a huge win for them. They're looking like a team that's going to be right there in the middle of the mix with Syracuse trying to, all those ACC bids that Syracuse is going to want to try and grab here. NC State got the win. Syracuse has to do the same on Monday, right? Syracuse got Virginia after Virginia suffered not a bad loss. It was a good loss to Pitt, but a loss that ticked them off. I'm sure Miami's not going to be in a good mood Monday night. So noted there. NC State got the win. Syracuse should watch that film and do what they can to replicate all that. As Richard notes here, as we started the show, and I think we'll end with this one as well, maybe Syracuse does have the best freshman class, as one James Arthur Boeheim once said. So thank you, friends. Great stuff as always. Great comments after a great win. It was a great win for Syracuse tonight at the JMA Wireless Dome, taking down Notre Dame 78-73. The Orange 12-6. They're 5-2 in ACC play. They've won 9 of their last 11. We'll be right back with you here Monday night, 7 o'clock tip. Kind of the same thing as tonight, right around 9 o'clock or so when that game's over. Get back right where you're watching here on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, I should say, as well. If you missed the show, though, you can always catch it down the road in our YouTube clip on the social media channels you're watching now. It's embedded in my recap on syracuse.com as well. Thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate you coming by. And as Mary Ellen says here, let's go Buffalo. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. We'll talk Monday night after Syracuse takes on Miami.